A very good afternoon, dear students. So today we will read the next chapter from Rapid Reader, chapter 6. Yes, and the name of the chapter is very symbolical, that is knitting. You know, I told you that this whole story, this chronicles, the thing that was going on before the French Revolution took place, the things that happened during the revolution, and what happened in the aftermath of the revolution. Everything is chronicled there in this story. And especially before the revolution, when the revolution was getting matured, and those people, commoners, rank and file, they were subject to ruthless torture. And the torture came, it was sponsored by the aristocratic society. So they were thinking, and they were trying to reunite. They were trying to reunite in order to bring a lethal blow to the aristocratic setup. They were trying to do it, and they succeeded in their attempt to do so. Now, how all these things happened, especially how they found all the people, how all those people who were mere beggars, who had barely anything to wear, who had hardly anything to eat, how those beggars, unfed people joined hands, contacted each other, and how their unification grew right under the nose, right under the eyes of this aristocratic society. How did this happen? What kind of methods they adapted to befool the aristocratic force, their vigilance, and to carry on their propaganda? This chapter particularly tells us this thing. So we will read one by one, line by line, and we will know how all this thing was possible. So the chapter is knitting. It is the unification. It is the joining of one thread with another thread, one man with another man, one woman with another woman. That's how they build up a chain, a shackle. That is how they build up their primary preparation before the revolt. And that revolt you will see in the chapter Battle for Bastille. Yes. So it's knitting. One fine day, Defarge returned to Saint Antoine with a companion, a roadmender, Jacques. After eating and drinking, they went upstairs to the garret. You know, the wine shop at Saint Antoine. At the top there was an attic where Mr. Manethy used to stay. Dr. Manethy, father of Lucy Manethy, he used to stay, and he stayed there for several years. So right at that attic, as Dr. Manethy went with his daughter, long lost daughter, with Mr. Lorry. They are now living in England, in Soho Square, and that attic is empty, and this is actually being used by some people for their secret ambitions. We will get to know what are those. Where three more men were waiting. These and other commoners were all known as Jacks. Among themselves, Jacks 1, Jacks 2, and so on, and constituted what was universally known as the Jacquerie, a secret society. So these few people, they build up a clique, CLIQUE, a secret society, and they carried on their workings and all those things which they had to do in order to unify the people clandestinely. They did it, and they used to hold up meetings in that garret. Okay, and this group was known as Jacquerie, and the members who were there, they used to address themselves as numerically, like Jacks 1, Jacks 2, Jacks 3, and so on, Jacks 100, Jacks thousands. So it began from 1, then it became 2, then 3, then 4, and in the chapter Battle for Bastille you will see thousands of Jacks charging against those aristocratic force. And that's how they will grow their number, they will increase their number, they will increase the people who are like-minded and who are also tortured, demolished, who are also dominated, tortured by the aristocratic people. So it is their sufferings that will help them to hold hand with each other, to join hands with each other. It is their suffering which is common in between them. They know that we have all suffered, and they can feel the very pain being felt by the another person, because they knew that he or she is being subjected to same kind of torture, and he or she has been suffering the same way I have been doing it. I have been tolerating it. I have to do it. It's not that I have been doing it. It's what that I had to do it. I was forced. I had been forced to undergo such humiliation. All these commoners, they were forced to undergo such humiliations by the French aristocratic society, and the kind of force they were keeping with themselves, and the kind of system they were running. It was utterly humiliating for the commoners, for the downtrodden people, poor people. They continued to become poorer, while these people, they continued to become richer and richer by exploiting these poor people more and more. So they discussed what had happened to Gaspard. Gaspard, you know, Gaspard saw his own child getting run over by the careless Marquis, who was driving his coach dangerously through the crowd, and he saw right in front of his own eyes his son being run over by the coach and die at the spot. Not only that, to add fuel to fire, this Marquis, he threw a coin. He just threw a coin with full of resentment, with nonchalantly. He threw a coin and told him that you should better take care of your children, not to leave them alone on the street. And if they roam on the streets like that, then this kind of incidents are inevitable. And this is the coin which I am giving you against the life of that wretched child. So he threw a mere coin as a compensation for the life of that beautiful little child. So what else will a father think except of revenge? Nothing. He did the same thing. He was a bereaved father, and at the heat of the moment he killed Marquis on the same night, you know that. So that person, Gaspard, he was being tried in the court. And see, the judiciary was also tilted towards the aristocratic setup. The whole judiciary was corrupted, because it is very obvious that such a bereaved father, under the spell of his emotion, he might have done something wrong. And it's not that we are telling it was right, it was wrong. To kill someone is wrong, he did the wrong thing. But we need to think about the circumstance where the crime was committed. And considering this, we have to deliver the judgment. But here, no such thing we could see. The judges directly gave a death sentence to Gaspard. And in the middle of the French Revolution, one more very important innovation was the guillotine. It is a kind of a machine that was used to behead the criminals. Generally, whatever you may have done, however trivial it is, the common judgment for all the crime, whether it is little or high, heinous, whether it is trivial or heinous, whatever it is, the common judgment was death by guillotine. So guillotine was extensively used during the French Revolution. Both the aristocratic people, and when the power was changed, they toppled the setup of the aristocratic people, the common people, they took up the power. They also did the same thing. They also avenged all their wrongs. Later you will know it. There was also ruthless torture from the side of these common people who won the battle, And after that, these aristocratic people, they were hunted down. They were brutally killed. And most of them were beheaded under the blade of a guillotine. So it is written that the tall man who had murdered the marquis, a mercy petition on the grounds of madness over the loss of his son, and had been dismissed, and he was to be executed. Defords and other 3 men glanced darkly at one another. Glanced darkly means without any hope. They looked at each other without any hope, because they knew that there is no such way so that they can save their own friend. So, and like a tribunal declared vengefully the chateau and all the rest extermination, so they declared death for all the members of the chateau and all those relatives. Not only Marquis himself, but all his relatives should embrace death, brutal death from our end. We will bring death for them once we have the power. That's what they declared. So now we are coming across another important character, very conspicuous character, that is Madame Defarge. We saw her earlier, very timid, nonchalant, indifferent, calm, composed person, but right now her true self is going to be exposed. It was decided that the register of all those who were marked for death would be kept by Madame Defarge, who was well organized. So the names of those persons who will be murdered whenever this rebelling army, these common people who are rebelling against the aristocratic setup, they will have the power. Right at that time, whenever they will clutch the power, they will catch hold of the power, right then they are enlisting the names of those people who will be brutally killed for their ruthless torture, for their being ruthless to the people, to the common people, to the people who had nothing to eat, who had barely anything to wear, who are shivering in the cold and who are getting participated in the summer heat, and who were completely deserted by the government. Though the government did not stop collecting tax from them, still they did not take care of their taxpayers. So they were making a list for those aristocratic people who played an instrumental role in exploiting these common people. So they were making a list, those persons who will be killed, who will be beheaded once they catch hold of the power. So a few days later, Madame Defarge and her husband went to the country to leave Jacques, the road mender. They also collected information from a Jacques who was in the police. So they had their members secretly set up in different positions of the government in order to extract the news what was going on there, so that they can plan their action, they can plan how to attack them. They also collected information from a Jacques who was in the police. They learned that a spy, an Englishman, John Bursard, was commissioned for their quarters. So John Bursard was to reach there. And he was to give some information. He was to share, impart some information with these people. They got that news. Returning home, Madame Defarge noticed that her husband looked depressed and fatigued. She chided him for being tired and faint-hearted, advising him to console himself with the thought that though it took time to prepare for vengeance and retribution, when calamity occurred, it grounded everything before it to pieces. So this particular character of Madame Defarge reminds me of another character, which is Lady Macbeth. I came across her in the drama Macbeth, written by the famous dramatist, playwright Shakespeare. And there I read, and you can also find it, that when Macbeth, he was hesitating before he killed Duncan, as Duncan was one of his kings. It was Lady Macbeth who reached there and roused his spirit by saying that you are a man, you are a general. You have killed thousands in the battle, and now why are you retreating? Why are you hesitating from killing such a senile person who cannot even counter-attack, cannot even launch counter-attack to you? You can just go and kill him, no problem. So that's how when Mr. Defarge, he is sitting crestfallen, disappeared, disillusioned, unsure of the future, whether within his lifetime he will be able to witness the revolt or not. He was getting discouraged day by day. When will the revolt happen? They were elated, they were eager to take part in the revolt. And that's the particular time when he was lamenting that I don't know whether I will be able to take part in the revolt or not. Right at that time it was Madame Defarge who consoled her, not only that, who encouraged her, who raised her his lost spirit and induced courage inside him by saying that don't worry, revolt is no longer far enough, it is near, it will happen, it is already matured, it is just a number of time, a number of days we need to wait for that particular revolt.
What's more often?
So, yes, she said that the Jackery was addressing greater discontent, resentment, hatred each day, so he should not think that change would not come within their lifetime. So without thinking that he might not be able to see the day of the revolt, it is better he should indulge himself by shaping, molding the course of the revolt and nothing else. So by accelerating the day, by accelerating the revolt itself, they should be indulged, they should be careful, and they should be indulged in that particular job of accelerating the revolt instead of thinking that revolt will not happen. So they need to accelerate it. All the instruments, they need to accelerate it so that the revolt takes place even before its time, at least within his lifetime. So that's how she encouraged him. So next noontide they were visited by John Burseth, who established that Dr. and Miss Manethy were known to him, that he knew that Defarge was his old servant and had sheltered him. It transpired that Miss Manethy was getting married to Mr. Charles Darnay, who was French and whose mother's family name was D'Aulnay. So he informed every single thing, that it was Charles Darnay. Charles Darnay is not his real name, he is a French citizen. His mother belongs to D'Aulnay's family, which means they are related to Marquis. Not only that, Dr. Manethy, who was there living with Mr. Defarge in his attic at the wine shop, he is now living with his daughter in Soho Square, England, and their daughter is about to be engaged with this Charles Darnay, who is actually the one of the descendants of Marquis. So after hearing this, of course, you can understand. See, Madame Defarge knitted and talked calmly and steadily, but the news had troubled her husband, who wished that this should not harm Miss Manethy in any way. So he knew that I had sheltered my master, he had paid me well, and now it is a matter of my master's security, his happiness, because he has a daughter, and that daughter's future is going to be jeopardized if this daughter is to be married with Charles Darnay, whom we have vowed to kill. So Defarge thought his wife to be a frightful, grand woman. Take way she took after appearance, the way she the way she took all affairs into her stride. She moved from woman to woman, sitting in groups, stroking fierce fires in their hearts. So this Mrs. Defarge, she played a very key role in uniting the women, the common women who were there. She used to teach them how to knit, and in the middle of that she used to ignite the fire of resentment, hatred in the hearts of those women against the aristocratic setup. That's what she kept on doing. People thought she was teaching how to knit, or probably these women are sitting in a group in order to knit something and in order to have some common chat, but actually the undertone of their chat was something else, and there was fathomless resentment against the setup of the aristocratic society, and they were waiting for their opportunity to pounce at the aristocratic setup and to tear it apart. So much was closing in around these women who sat knitting that day. Their very selves were closing in around a structure not yet built, where they were to sit knitting, counting drooping heads. So they were knitting, they were actually planning their course of actions. They were planning how to avenge all the wrongs which had been done to them by this aristocratic civil setup, this government. And they kept on doing so, right in front of the eyes of these people, aristocratic vigilance. Those vigilantes were there, right in front of them. They kept on their, they carried on their hidden agenda, and there was no one who could have even an iota of suspicion that these women are capable of doing such a huge onslaught on the settlement, on the setup of the aristocratic government. They could not even imagine it. You will see how they inflict defeat, how they inflict so many blows upon the aristocratic setup in the chapter Battle for Bastille. There you will get to know how much able these women are, and they fought side by side with the men in the battle against those aristocratic force. They also were, they did not hesitate sacrificing their own lives for the sake of the security of the future generation. That's what they did. So that's how people were getting united. Men, they were uniting themselves by making a secret society. Women also were not far behind. They were also doing the same thing, just like the men. So that is the reason both men and women equally they took part in the French Revolution and toppled down the setup of aristocratic civilization. So that's what was there in that chapter, which is very much interesting. Later we will move towards more interesting chapters day by day. Till then you revise every single thing, and the moment you face any kind of trouble, don't hesitate contacting me. Till then, let's call it a day. Tata students.